Oh, I hate to cut off the Friends theme song, but we got time a ticking and a topic to go. So welcome everyone to today's webinar. You have Gina and myself about to do introductions here from Buildout. And today we're going to discuss why we think spreadsheets are canceled, but more or less looking at using this topic as a way to look at your tech appetite. So as we dive into this today, we're going to say hi. So Gina, how about you introduce yourself?
Hello. Hi, everyone. I know I'm so sad that song was the last one. We didn't get the full fruition there. My name is Gina Melchiori. I'm over here on the sales team. I'm a team lead for our account executive team. So I might know some of the people that are on here and maybe have talked to you in the past, but excited to have this conversation today with Amanda.
Great. Well, hi, everyone. Amanda Betts, I'm the head of marketing over here at Buildout. I get to work with really talented folks like Gina and the whole Buildout crew to help the commercial real estate industry. And I'm really excited to have this topic today because it's timely as we think about Q4 and Q1 and budget season upon us as we round out this portion of the year. And we're really here to be a support. We want you guys to think about a different way in terms of how you approach tech and tech for your business. So before we really get into the meat of this, what I want you all to take a second to do is close your eyes and think about what would you do if you had more time in your day? And that's the question I want you to always kind of have in the back of your mind. What would you do if you had more time? Spend time with more family, do more networking, close more business, maybe add a couple extra rounds of golf on your day, but whatever it might be, I really do want you guys to think about what would you do with more time, because that's gonna be the underpin of how you talk about how tech can help and how solutions can help and how you really modernize your business. So I'm pumped for today's discussion. Quick shout out to those who registered this morning after I sent out an email. Thank you for joining myself and Gina, but we're happy to dive into this. All right, so when we think about tech, and tech can be really daunting, especially in the purchase of new technology, we like to approach this a little bit like how you approach your appetite. It helps you understand how you approach things, right? So are you hungry for good tech? We've been using this analogy lately around, evaluating technologies a little bit like going up to that buffet, a buffet loaded with all the good food. And instantly you're thinking, am I hungry? Am I really hungry? Where do I start? Do I dive in there? Do I go there? And it can be a little overwhelming. And tech's kind of the same way. Do you bite off more than you can chew? Do you not bite off enough? And kind of keeping this analogy lighthearted as a way to kind of approach, where are you ready? What stage are you entering in when it comes to purchasing? And today we're definitely taking a deeper dive more into that CRM space, and where spreadsheets have long played a role in how we manage prospecting and nurturing and contact management. But is there a new way? Is there an elevated way to do that? So that is what we're discussing. All right, so it's that time for that tech intervention. So right now we're having that tech stack type of wish list item look at when we think about 2024 planning. So this is why I'm excited to have this discussion with Gina specifically, because Gina is out in the front lines every single day talking to brokers and brokerages in these very same type of discussion points. So Gina, what are you seeing? What are you hearing today in the market?
Oh my goodness. It feels a little like the wild, wild west right now. I know there's a lot of change going on, which change can be daunting. Change can also be really exciting. There's a lot of different types of opportunities out there. And the conversations that I've been having from that landscaping is organization and changing and adapting to the market with what they have control of. One of those being their tech stack. What are you logging into every day? What are you using to stay on top of your follow-ups? And with that, recently we did hold a webinar a few weeks ago with our CGO, Helen Calvin, shout out there, and Faraz Shima. So thank you for popping on there. Faraz is a managing group principal with Coldwell Banker Commercial. And they essentially discussed that 80% of all of you that are attending right now, your job is administrative. It's redundant data entry, which means it takes a whole lot of time away from the things that you want to do in your day-to-day, which is focusing on your clients, continuing to nurture and build those relationships. And that manual redundant data entry, those processes that you're currently undergoing is just honestly making outreach a lot less personal. It takes a whole lot longer to accomplish. Not with that, and according to our data over the last few months, there's been a huge decrease in signed CAs, which of course signals serious buyers. And with that, we're seeing this in both enterprise and non-enterprise markets. So it's affecting everybody. So from everything that we've been accumulating in just the last half of the year, we are going to spend the next 20 or so minutes just exploring what that means for your tech appetite, for tech intervention. We'll give you a couple free pieces of advice and best practices and tips that you can use to make your life easier, depending on where you fall on that spectrum and what type of level of technology that you're actually ready for. So we can get on into it.
Perfect. And what Gina's touching on is what we like to call here at Buildout the tech maturity model. I know it's not very exciting, it's not very appealing, the wording, but that's what it is. It's kind of self-assessing where are you at today, where's your team at today, to basically make the best next step. So Gina, how do you think this topic, your tech maturity model, where that steps in, relates to rethinking the purchase on CRM?
Yeah, with CRM and tech in general, for those that are in commercial real estate, I have all different types of conversations with those that fall into this like 3 levels of usage of tech. Those that are what we call low level, there's mid, and there's high. And it doesn't necessarily mean that any one of those stages or levels that you're at for your tech maturity is wrong. I always like to think of it as like a gym membership. The way that I like to exercise might be vastly different than one of my friends. We might have totally different gyms that we're members of, but it doesn't make her workout worse than mine. It's just the best gym is the one that you show up to. And that's the same thing when we talk about CRM, is everybody requires something different. Their brains work differently. Their strengths are different. And it's not one size fit all. So fortunately, no matter what level that you fall into it, as we progress here, we have a solution to be able to help you. And we're also here on our team as guides, and more so like your tech senseis, rather than trying to shove things down your throat there or throwing stuff at the wall that doesn't quite fit for you. So we're always happy to be resources as well to make sure that you're leveraging technology and having it meet you where you're at.
So I think the plan here, what we're going to do, you guys, we're going to go through those low tech, mid tech, high tech stages that Gina talked about, and give you guys a sense of the type of technologies that fall into those, as well as some pros and cons. So as you think about, where you might be sitting, where your team might be sitting, it helps you understand maybe how to scale. So with that, Gina, let's dive right into low tech.
Yes. So for all my low tech humans that are here right now, you might be wondering if you're low tech, if you're using Excel, you have spreadsheets, you're putting stuff somewhere, right? You're not just on Post-its and notepads. If you are, we can get you elevated there, but you're using something, you're logging into something, you're tracking your stuff somewhere, right? You're using your email day in and day out. You're living and dying by that. You've probably gotten your logins to your Outlook or your Gmail. And like anyone in commercial real estate, these people are definitely using some sort of data source. They're getting new data because they're always looking for new leads and new potential business opportunities. There's goods and bads here, of course. So anyone that is falling into this low tech segment, the pros is low cost. Their wallet's pretty happy, and it's stuff that they can continue doing. So it's stuff that's repeatable. It's not gonna tomorrow going to be something different, or they're going to keep having to change their processes. On the sad face side of things, you can be pretty prone to bad data. It can be a quick, oops, I just deleted this whole book of business. I just deleted this contact or this lead or this conversation, and I have no idea how to find it. And I don't know if it was me that deleted it or somebody on my team. And with that, as I mentioned earlier, that like 80% of administrative work, low tech people are falling heavy and hard to a lot of manual maintenance. There are some ways that we can give a little free advice here, since you're on the call, you're trying to elevate your game. In general, just educating yourself on new Excel upgrades and shortcuts to make your life easier. Excel is a beautiful tool. There's a lot of cool nooks and crannies and things you can do to try to make some of those manual processes a little less headache. With also being in the low tech segment, maintaining a regular follow-up cadence with all your contacts, making sure that it's either monthly or quarterly, something palatable that doesn't feel overwhelming, but especially in today's market and where the market is going, staying top of mind for any of your past clients or any sort of current prospects you're going after. And just every 6 months, evaluate if these processes are still working well for you or for your team, making sure that you're using your time best. We know we can always change, we can always elevate, and maybe it's in 6 months or 12 months that you go, man, that low tech stuff, okay, I'm ready to elevate. I want to move into the mid-tech segment.
So another way to look at this, I guess you could say, is if you're feeling like this is resonating with you, what Gina's saying, like, yeah, that sounds like me, or yeah, our team is pretty heavy in Excels. We don't think spreadsheets are canceled because we live and breathe by them. That's more than okay. But as we start talking about elevating to the next stage, mid-tech, that's the natural progression of maybe where to consider. So we're about to dive into mid-tech. That's the way to think of that. So if you feel like this is what resonates with you, then maybe the next stage is mid-tech. And the reason why we're doing that is because we don't want people to jump so fast and so far that then it becomes too overwhelming. So let's dive into mid-tech, Gina.
Yes. So mid-tech, you've probably at some point experienced those, oops, I just deleted something, or it gets way crazy of trying to find something specific you're looking at. It gets really tough to start grouping. So you've elevated to more of like a cloud-based spreadsheet so you can be tracking things better and tracking wherever you might be. You're starting to dabble in like light email marketing. So you're not just sending those one-off emails anymore. If you're in mid-tech, you know that you're starting to look at more of like campaigns, maybe trying to put people into more of a follow-up cadence. Communication platforms are being utilized, whether it's something like Zoom or Slack for internal communication. You're learning that just beeping your head out of the office, trying to coagulate your colleague or emailing them, texting them isn't as efficient or as palatable going forward. And of course, too, you're in CRE, so you're using some sort of data source. The goods and bads here, the goods if you're in this mid-tech segment is that you are supplementing your cold calling with emailing efforts. You know that it's not just hammering on the phone to get people's attention. At this point, you understand and you're utilizing tools to get into their inbox and really like double end your contact with them. You also are staying coordinated with your team on important tasks. It's not like, did they get to it? I'm not sure if they did. Who needs to get this done? You're starting to figure out this whole world of task management. And you're learning that all of these types of tools and these processes, the more streamlined you get, the more that it's fostering that collaboration on your team. On the downside, there's always something, right? You're still having a lot of manual time taken up on these processes. There's a lot of keystrokes. There's a lot of did I, didn't I? There's a lot of human error still involved in this. You can't guarantee quality outreach at this point either. And it can be pretty costly because if you're in this segment, you're starting to realize, wow, I have a lot of logins. I have a lot of monthly subscriptions. Who do I go to for support on all of this? It's just a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And it can start to feel really siloed on your data because if you're always doing something like just a spreadsheet, it's hard to collaborate with your team and see, does this person live somewhere else on their spreadsheet? Do we have 18 John Smiths in our system and it's the same guy and we're all tracking the same stuff with him and it starts to be really repetitive and messy data? Tips and best practices, because you know I'm going to give you something, is while you're introducing these like email workflows and you're starting to realize call email and having that kind of nurturing follow-up cadence, it's really important to remember the personal touches because we have all been receiving those emails where you're like, that person doesn't even know they're emailing me. That's so robotic. They know nothing about me. Things are spelled weird. There's nothing personal there. Keep the personal touches because just like you are more open and more prone to opening an email that says something specific to you and you feel a little special. So keep that in mind.
I would like to say as a marketer, the best marketing is we don't mind as consumers being marketed to, we just don't want to know it. So if you kind of mix into what you're saying, is that personal and automated, it's a good mix. I'd also kind of put the mid-tech folks. If you're feeling like this is maybe connecting with you, this is where you're really starting on more of that collaboration plane with other colleagues and members of your team. You're also starting to dabble a little bit into marketing automation as it relates to CRM tracking. So if you have tools that are letting you know that you have contacts in the pipeline and you start putting out messages, you can track some of that activity. but it could be in multiple sources. And the challenge with multiple sources is how do you aggregate that all together to make sure that your data is clean and accurate so you can put the best plan in place, and also make sure you're not overdoing those automated messages and getting away from personal touches. So those are our mid-tech folks. I know I definitely personally fall into this bucket probably more often than not. So let's dive into high tech.
Yeah, so my high tech humans, if we're going back to like the buffet analogy, which I feel like is lunchtime for most, so I'm sorry if you guys are starting to salivate and get hungry with the buffet analogy. But the high tech humans are going, they've got a little bit of everything. They know what kind of plate that they want to have, and they're starting to add the sauce on top of it. So they're spicing things up. Those that are falling in the high tech range, they have a formal CRM, or they're at least starting in some sort of formal CRM. It might not be specific to commercial real estate, but they're understanding the importance of, like what you were mentioning, is I don't want to double dip and accidentally put this person in the same 3 different mass emails or put them on too many lists. And I don't know, did I email them today? Did we email them 3 times today? I don't know. You're starting to track like deals with them. You're wanting to organize these contacts into very targeted lists. Not just your contacts, not just your prospects or your clients. You're able to start to track like, okay, who are our hot leads? Who are people that we've worked with in the past? Who have we not touched in the last, say, like 60 days, 90 days? Our owners, our tenants, you get the gist. You're elevating your email marketing. So not only are you like, yeah, this is pretty important for me to zhuzh in some emails here and target people, but now you're using some sort of tool to help you actually reach those targeted audiences, something like HubSpot or MailChimp, and you're able to track insight a little bit more. You're also using some sort of listings platform. You're showcasing your active listings. If you're on here and you're like, yes, I have listings, you are using some sort of software or tech or listing service to get your name and that listing out there. And of course, as everybody else in the market and the industry, you're using data still. The goodness of this is that these types of people, if you're on the call and you're like, this resonates, you're noticing that you're saving a lot of time. You're starting to benefit from that automation where tech can start to do things for you. It can kind of be like another appendage for you, and you're able to open up more time to focus on building those relationships, hunting a new deal, or going out there and networking. You're also having more of like a central hub of communication, not just for you and your team, but you're also having this hub of like your central source of truth of who you and your team have reached out to and who you guys still need to reach back out to. And you're experiencing an elevated version of organization. You know where things are at. You have them in certain drawers. You know which nooks and crannies that they live in and how to find them. On the downside of this, it can be really overwhelming. Probably our low and mid tech right now are like, oh my goodness, that's a lot. It can be. Yeah, it can definitely be a lot. It can be a lot of logins if they're not talking to each other well. It can be just a lot to learn. It can be a lot too if you're a team made up of kind of all of these different segments. It can be really hard to be a high tech person and trying to bring in some of the low or mid tech if you're not quite there yet on that adoption phase. And one of the biggest things that we face in a lot of my conversations when somebody's coming to me saying, CRM, I need to organize my contacts and track. Not having something that is specific for commercial real estate is not just causing a lot of extra manual entry that you shouldn't have to do. It's also causing a lot of these workarounds that just don't work, or it's a lot of money and pain and effort because you're trying to make something like a square fit in a round hole, and it's always going to be missing some really major components. In general, for these people, again, some like best practices and tips, just establishing processes as early on as possible that allow you to focus on relationship management instead of so much manual entry. Still, of course, while offering that personal touch is vital, as well as trying to set up some sort of integration or sync between the platforms, finding things that really play well together if you are having to Frankenstein all these different avenues together.
So I would think this too is still room to grow. And I don't think any one stage is, and I think Gina's done a good job of explaining, like, it doesn't matter where you're at, low, mid, or high. It's just trying to gather a sense of where am I at today. We have definitely seen individuals who end up reaching out to Buildout and having conversations where they overpurchased. and now they're swimming and they're drowning and they're trying to stay afloat in terms of, I don't know how to manage all this tech. And the reality is they purchase almost maybe too much, or they didn't purchase the right tool that they needed where they're at in that stage. And that's kind of where we want to kind of enlighten everyone. It's okay to come in wide-eyed and kind of like, I'm not sure where I need to start, but this is how I'm working today. Our team is still using X and Y type of strategies. What do you recommend? How do we move forward? And I think that's a big part of why we mean, like, where do you think your CRM tech appetite currently lives? So it's important, right? If you understand where you're coming in at, then you know how to incrementally support your business. Anything you want to add, Gina?
I think just in general too, is like when you're coming to the table of, look, this is what I have, I don't know where to start. Our sales team, when you hear our CEOs talking or our leadership team, we're always trying to be here as a resource, because chances are you're not the first that we've heard the exact sentiments coming out, and you're not going to be the last. And so we're always happy to help meet you where you are. We'll probe a lot of questions. We will ask you a ton of questions. So know that there's a rhyme to our reason here. So once you kind of know where you sit on this tech aptitude, then we can also help guide you, and you are a little bit more in the know. You can start to see behind the curtains of why we're asking certain questions, and we'll work together to lead you down the right path, whether it is Buildout or it's something else.
I think what we also want to leave you all with is, here's some quick takeaways. If you're with us today, this is meant to be a really succinct conversation and give you guys some quick pointers. So here's a couple takeaways. Gina, do you want to walk us through these?
Yeah, of course. So in general, we mentioned earlier, right? 80% of your job is super repetitive, a lot of manual entry, a lot of headaches involved, and a lot of keystrokes. So in order to position yourself in a really solid spot is just investing in the right tech that actually does help you spend your time where it matters, helps you lean out so you can stay as streamlined as possible, being able to provide you more time so you can focus on the things that matter, like your VIP clients, your favorite buyers, your landlords that are always willing to work with you, your investors that you want to work with or that you haven't quite gotten to because it's been so crazy busy. Being able to loosen up some of your ends that cause so much time boggled down so you can focus on those people and those deals. And then, of course, no matter what tools you're using, whether it's low tech, mid tech, high tech, wherever you're at, do not forget that it really, really helps and makes a difference by keeping those touches personal, no matter how much or how little tech that you're using.
So, where do we go from here? So before I let Gina kind of wrap things up, I think it's important to go back to that whole question of what would you do with more time? What we started off with. And I think just hearing Gina wrap up those kind of takeaways, it's important to note that if you can find the pockets of where you can find tech to enable you, then it's a broker-led universe, right? The best way that you can spend your time is if you're out in market doing your thing. But it's hard to do that if there's still a lot of administrative things behind the wall that you've got to work through, and that can be really time consuming. So I think there is a way you look at, yes, I need to use tech to help enable better business, and then understanding where you're at today helps you make smart decisions so you don't over purchase. So Gina, what would you say? Where do they go from here?
Yeah, so since you guys have spent some lunchtime with us and we appreciate it, if you've absorbed a lot of information and at this point probably like, oh, I said exactly on this segment. One of the ways that we can start helping you today is providing you that tech assessment. So whether you feel confident what segment you exist in or you're still curious, it is free, no gimmicks. We'll send it to you as a follow-up from today's discussion. It's a really great tool so that way you can evaluate yourself, your team, anybody else that's involved in kind of like your tech and tech stack process. And if you are in a position where you need to get others on board, make sure just to open it up. Honest conversations are super helpful and really the best place that you can start. And you know that we're always happy to help kind of organize and herd the cats, as we like to say.
And that tech assessment is pretty clever. I personally took it. I kind of half-heartedly took it just to make sure it worked and everything was, T's were crossed, I's were dotted, and it's really quite clever. When it spits out at the end, it kind of gives you a nice rounded view of, maybe where you're at. And it could also be a really fun exercise for you to consider doing it with your team. Sit on down at your next lunch break and kind of dive through those questions together as a team, because oftentimes a tech purchase takes a village to rise up. So we want to make sure everyone's comfortable with that decision. But with that, we love the fact that you guys took about 30 minutes out of your afternoon to chat with Gina and I. We're going to certainly send some follow-up. We didn't leave time for Q&A today, but doesn't mean you can't shoot us over a question. We'll be happy to discuss. So with that, thank you all. Happy Tuesday, and make it a great week.
Bye, guys.